Total Screen proudly presents the Weekly Set Podcast with Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Episode 207, recorded May 25th, 2019. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Set, the official podcast of the Total Screen. I am your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at the Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So, today we are going to be talking about the the series finale of Game of Thrones. I was saying season for a second, and I'm like, no, this is the end.
This is the end, my friend. The end.
My only friend, the end.
My only friend, the end.
We're talking about Season 8, Episode 6, titled The Iron Throne.
Worst season ever!
So still a lot of people hated this. I just quickly want to go over what I think was my base reaction to just this episode, before we even talk about really what happened in this episode, which is
interested to see.
I honestly, it felt pretty vanilla to me. Mm-hmm. Like, the best way I'm able to describe this episode, not the whole season, just this episode, is that I don't understand how people were really angry after this episode, because it was just very inoffensive, I felt.
Yeah, I don't get what made people angry. Maybe Daenerys, but
it's like, at that point, if you're already angry about the direction the season was going in, like, how did this make you angrier?
Right. Yeah, as far as, like, what
It's kind of like if you got stung by a bee 50 times, and then, like, a bee just kind of landed on you and flew off but didn't sting you, like that last time. And you went like, God damn it, I almost got stung by a bee. And it's like...
Yeah, I'd like to know how this was, like, the worst ending of just this episode, not like the season in full, because I understand people's general gripes with the season. Like, I get that, but like this episode by itself, what's offensive about it? Like, what makes it bad? What makes it the worst ending in history? I would love to know.
Yeah, and have those people not watch Dexter.
Yeah, have those people not watch Dexter.
Because that's the thing, is like,
as far as
I said,
nobody ended up as a lumberjack in this episode. Maybe that's what Arya's going off to do. But
maybe that's what Jon's doing north of the wall now.
Yeah, that's what Jon's doing north of the wall.
He did grow a bigger beard.
It's true. It's true.
But yeah, it's, to me, if I had to sum up the season finale or series finale in one word, it would be inoffensive.
Right.
Like, I just didn't think, like, and I could understand maybe some people being a little bored by it, and some people did complain about that, but boredom doesn't incite a reaction of like, oh my God, this sucks so much. Well, it's like, boredom's kind of more just like, meh. Like, I could understand people saying, oh yeah, the series finale, meh. I could understand that, because it was slow, and if you didn't like the direction the season had gone before that would totally make sense to me. What I don't understand are the people that are like outraged.
Yeah.
It's like, at this point, like with the rest of the season behind you, like having already gone through that and already had those things that, could have been offensive to you if you didn't like them, like, this is what this kind of like escalates it. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. It just feels like anger for the sake. It feels like they're trying to be angry. Like, they want to be angry.
I just think right now, like, the whole anger and stuff is just, it's a meme. It's built off of...
Yeah, it's manufactured.
It's people jumping on a bandwagon, and it's mostly anger from the rest of the season. Like, it's just going into this episode because people were already mad. So why not be more mad? Like, why stop being mad now? It's like,
so you're basically in the same boat as me, that the season finale was basically kind of vanilla, kind of inoffensive, and not really.
I actually enjoyed it, because I felt like it was a good ending. I felt like it left me satisfied. It left me satisfied that things had ended well and that characters had ended up in good positions for those characters.
Yeah, I mean, that's roughly how I felt, but like, it's just like there wasn't anything super exciting, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't, like, nothing blew me away in the episode. That's why I say it's kind of vanilla, because I like vanilla. It's a great flavor. It's just a matter of it's very inoffensive. Like, it satisfied me, but it didn't, like, challenge me. It didn't, you know what I mean? Like, so I could understand some disappointment from fans about that, that the ending didn't challenge them or something. I just don't understand like outrage to it, because it's kind of like, you know, I don't know. It's weird. It's like seeing something boring and then that causing you to like jump up and down and rave around and scream. It's like, no, the correct response would be to like kind of like go, oh, I'm out of here and go to sleep or something, you know? Like if that would be the negative reaction that I would anticipate for this season, or for the season finale or series finale, would be like something like that, of people just saying they were bored. But the outrage just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know. To each their own.
Doesn't make sense. I mean, people are mad about Daenerys. Fine, fair shake. You know, at this point, you knew it was coming. I mean,
but that was the last episode. Like, you knew that would be being offended at the last episode. It's like, you know, by this point, it's like that's not this episode's story. That's last episode's story.
After last week, you knew what was going to happen this week. Don't pretend you didn't. Yeah. Don't pretend like this offended you. Like Daenerys wasn't just going to get off from killing a bunch of people and then being, oh, I'm good again now.
I mean, that's kind of like, it would be like if people were mad about them killing Ned Stark in episode 10 of season 1. It's like, no, he died in episode 9. Like, you know, like, he died last week. So if you want to be angry at that episode, that's fine. But like, why are you angry at this episode? Like, because they followed from that point? Because they didn't like have him wake up from a dream or something? Like,
they did have like Daenerys win. She didn't win, and she, you know, our queen didn't win. It's so sad. And they've ruined her character. So, and then they killed her. It was bullshit. I hate this show.
So I did the video that I do every week for kind of talk about one topic. This week's video I did was about Drogon's decision to burn the Iron Throne.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Before I get to that, though, I did want to mention Tyrion and Jon's discussion prior to that, where basically the discussion that led Jon to kill Daenerys, because Tyrion basically like explains like Daenerys' entire character arc, and it didn't seem like he explained it for the benefit of Jon, more like he explained it for the benefit of the viewers.
People act as if that was a response to people being confused or upset about the last episode. They filmed all this shit months ago.
Yeah. They did not film this in response. Like, how could they know? Like, I mean, I'm sure they had already assumed that episode 5 would be controversial.
Yeah.
Obviously, but yeah, I think this was not a response to people's fan response, because that's ridiculous. But it was funny because it did come off as Tyrion just blatantly explaining Daenerys' character arc in a way that didn't feel organic. I think that was one of the weakest parts of the episode for me.
I don't know. I liked it because I think her story arc made sense. I just think that it felt rushed.
Yeah, it did feel. I feel like the whole the whole Daenerys thing, like, this should have been its own season, and we should have been able to see Daenerys like her regress, like, you know, through the course of a season. I think we only got this episode because it's so short. We only got a few episodes. We only got, you know, the start of Daenerys' downfall, like in episode 4 when they're having the party. You know, you go from episode 4 to episode 5, and it's that's a big leap, you know, to go from, oh, I'm kind of upset and jealous to, I'm going to kill everybody.
Well, the rumor is that the books, when they finally do come out, that the next one that's coming out, which is the second to last of the books, is basically going to end where episode 3 ended.
Right.
It's going to end with the Army of the Dead being defeated and whatever, and that the entire next book is going to be about, you know, the downfall of Daenerys.
Yeah, but go on with explaining why Drogon destroyed the Iron Throne.
Well, I did this in the video, so I invite people to kind of check that out for a more kind of like detailed look at that, because I explained it out and had, like, you know, a script for it written. I wrote out a script for it and I put like funny pictures with memes and stuff attached to it. But the main thing I want to say is something that I've been seeing a lot of, like, since after I recorded that video, which is a lot of people like going like, oh, and they're posting it as a joke, and it's funny as a joke, except I feel some people feel that there's some element of truth to it, and that's what I want to dispel, is the whole thing about like Drogon sees his mother was stabbed with something pointy, sees the Iron Throne being made of things that are pointy, and is like, "Fuck you, chair."
Yeah, that's kind of stupid.
Yeah, I think it's a funny joke, but I think there's an element of people that think that there's an element of truth to it, and I don't think there is at all.
I saw this meme image. I think I like this better because like it's the image is like Jon and Drogon's like just like, oh boy, this is a mess, and then Jon is just like, sorry Drogon, I didn't want it, so go ahead and burn me now. And Drogon destroys the Iron Throne, and Jon is like, hey, you missed. And then Drogon says, no, Jon, it was power that killed my mother. A structural and pervasive system of coercion under which you and I are merely actors. Why would I...
See, and that's the thing is that meme, it's funny, but it's also, it's a criticism of something that's closer to the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's saying like, oh, that's so stupid. So Drogon cares about power dynamics. It's like, no, I don't think that's true either. I don't think that Drogon gives a shit about power dynamics. But I think he does recognize that the throne is the thing that caused this.
Yeah.
That the throne is a symbol of what caused this. And he didn't destroy it to like help mankind get over like a chain of power or something like none of that bullshit. He destroyed it because he was angry at that. Like that his mom's like, I want the throne, you know, goes to Westeros, takes 3 dragons with her, his siblings, and himself with her. His siblings all die.
Yes.
His mom dies. Now he's all alone in the world. He doesn't kill Jon because Jon's basically the last of his family, being a Targaryen.
Right.
So what do you do when you're like really angry at like a close family member, like where you just want to like kill him at that point? Oh, you're not gonna like kill him, but you're gonna
the wall.
Yeah, you're gonna throw something at the wall or something. And then you're gonna storm out of there. Yeah. And I think that's basically what Drogon did. Drogon was angry. He was controlled enough to say, I'm not going to kill Jon.
There's also symbolism in there because if you remember the lore, Aegon fashioned the Iron Throne using dragon fire, using his dragons. And so the Iron Throne was created by dragon fire, and now it is destroyed through dragon fire. So we've come full circle.
But I see like Drogon's motivation, like I said, is like, he's angry at Jon, but he's not going to kill Jon.
Right.
He's angry at that, and because he can't kill Jon, he's looking at the Iron Throne and he's like, this fucking thing. And that's his reaction. When he burns that thing, when he burns the Iron Throne, just imagine what's going through Drogon's head is, oh, this fucking thing.
Yeah, oh, this fucking thing, yeah.
He's not going, oh no, Jon, because power is what corrupts. He's not doing that. And he's not going like, ooh, that's pointy, like what killed Mom, you know?
Yeah.
He's seeing that and going like, because of this stupid thing, my mother went from where she was loved and took us across the narrow sea to this place where we're reviled, where we're never going to be loved. I lost both my siblings. I lost my mom, all because of this stupid thing.
Yeah.
And then he burned it and destroyed it. And I think I think it was a good, powerful moment, and people have over-memified it to the point that they're not paying attention to what.
Yeah, people don't understand the moment. That's the problem.
Yeah. I think that they're either like, they see the theories of the moment and they go like, oh, so he destroyed it because it's a symbol of power, and so they make that meme about that, and they go like, to kind of make fun of that and make it like it's stupid or something, and it's like, no, because it wasn't a concept of power against like for the sake of power, like, oh, I'm gonna destroy this because it's what's right for mankind. Drogon doesn't give a shit about mankind.
No.
He destroyed that because he was angry, and he assigned some of the blame of what made him angry against that chair. And some of the blame was also against Jon, but he's not going to kill Jon because Jon's the last of his family.
Right.
So that's what it was. So that's what it was to me. So that's what I basically described in the video, being kind of what Drogon's motivation would be in that. And I think that it goes along with the idea of like, people were really disappointed, for instance, this season that Bran never warged Drogon. And I think I already mentioned this in one of the podcasts, but why would Bran be able to warg Drogon? Whatever made us think that he could warg Drogon? Like, a big part of his warging that we've seen so far was that when he was able to warg Hodor, it was a huge deal. But he never warged any other human. He warged Hodor because Hodor was a simpleton.
Right.
Dragons aren't simpletons.
Yeah, dragons aren't simpletons. So speaking of Bran, I think one of the big controversial points of this episode was making Bran the king of the Six Kingdoms.
That's one thing that did make me like roll my eyes and that I thought was stupid.
I thought it was I thought it was.
I didn't have a problem with Bran. My problem was with the Six Kingdoms.
Well, it's because Winterfell is independent per the.
Yeah, I thought that was stupid. Because like, there's no way. Like, and when I argued against that, I think I was arguing against that with my sister, and she was like, "Oh, you don't think it makes sense that Sansa would want that?" And I'm like, "No, it makes perfect sense that Sansa would want that. Well, it doesn't make any sense that Yara didn't stand up and go, well, then fuck that. Then I'm independent too."
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
That's what doesn't make sense. Like, why didn't everybody else at that point go like, wait, if she's independent, why are we having to stick to this?
That's true. Yeah. Why didn't everybody else like want independence? Like, Bran just like gave it to Sansa in front of like everybody, and nobody else did it. Everybody was like, yeah, but we're cool being part of, we're cool being part of an empire.
Yeah, we're cool like owing taxes and owing allegiance to a separate throne than holds the best interest of our own people. Like, we're totally fine with that. We'll just let you go, to the north and be cool with, the division of power and the way that we have now the wall, which is still considered like basically property of the Six Kingdoms, is now like separated by the north between
the north. And sure, things might be perfectly fine and dandy since the Queen of the North is the sister of the King of the Six Kingdoms.
For now.
But what happens when that's not the case?
The Six Kingdom's gonna change.
Yeah. What happens when that's not the case? But then Bran is also like the three-eyed raven, so Bran's gonna live a long-ass fucking time. Like, people don't know how long he's gonna live. It's not going to be a normal human lifespan because Bran isn't a normal human anymore.
Well, I mean, we don't know. Like, that's, the other three-eyed raven, was able to last so long because he attached himself to a fucking tree. So, I don't know if they're gonna like put a tree in the middle of the throne room and have Bran grow into it,
True.
It's all Lord Perseus, go and water the king.
I did like Tyrion's speech though when he argued for Bran the Broken, like, and it's funny too because Sansa immediately interjects and be like, he can't have kids, he can't be king. What are you talking about? And then Tyrion's like, that's the best part. He can't have kids. He can't have Joffreys who can take his place, So,
and he's like, and you of all people should understand why that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. Yeah, so Tyrion suggests that this council made up of representatives of each of the now Six Kingdoms. I guess maybe even Sansa gets a future say. Maybe even Winterfell might have a future say. Who knows?
They shouldn't. Because it's stupid and they shouldn't have their own kingdom. It doesn't make any sense.
But this council of representatives from the different kingdoms are now going to appoint a king every time the need comes. Like when Bran dies, they're going to get together and appoint somebody else, instead of just having this line of succession that is sacred and that nobody can argue against, even if that means like a complete shit becomes king.
There are a few interesting people in that council. Did you notice that Robin Aaron, the breast milk boy?
Yes, I know.
Was there, like, all kind of growing up now.
He is so old now. And also, like...
Yet Ed Martelli making an ass out of himself for one last time.
I really loved it because I remember, like, last week you were speculating that they were gonna, like, go full democracy, and then...
I didn't think they were going democracy. I was saying Magna Carta.
Okay, Magna Carta.
I thought we were gonna get something, and that's kind of what we got.
That's
like, we got something along the lines of the Magna Carta.
It's funny because we did get that part where Samwell gets up and he does suggest full democracy. He does.
Everybody laughs at it.
Yeah. Samwell gets up and he suggests like giving everybody the vote, and then and Ed Bertolli especially laughs out. He says maybe my horse should have a say. Everybody laughs him down.
That was funny watching everybody laugh at democracy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I didn't think that they were going to bring democracy to Westeros. What I said like last week was I thought it was going to be like the Magna Carta, which is similar to what happened. The Magna Carta was basically that it was putting power over the king. It was saying like, hey, we need a council of people, we need a group of people, we need like a House of Lords or a House of, Commons or whatever that's going to limit the power of the king, so the king can't just do whatever the fuck he wants.
Right, exactly.
And that's kind of what they did. Like they made it so that a council appoints each king, but they didn't really establish any system of limitations on the king himself once he's in power.
Right. Yeah, they didn't. Yeah, they established like it's baby steps.
Yeah, but it's kind of it's reminiscent of the Magna Carta, which is what I was thinking they might do.
And it makes sense because like Westeros is basically an analogy of like what 15th century England. So,
yeah, it's the War of the Roses.
Yeah, the War of the Roses. So.
And Magna Carta wasn't War of the Roses. That was later, I think. But it was
it was later, but obviously like.
But it's along the same vein. It's like
along the same vein. Like they're showing like they're showing that like this society is evolving in at least some small way.
Yeah. So I think that's good. I actually like Bran as the pick. I know some people online were like, another attempt of using a meme to kind of like ignore the truth, which was that they were saying like Bran has a better story. All of these people had better stories than Bran. It's like, no, Bran had kind of a boring last couple seasons where he's been like in his stoic form, But if you actually like take apart what he did this season, he did have a fucking great story.
Yeah, he did have a great story.
I mean, he was pushed out of a window. He was paralyzed. He went north of the wall while being paralyzed. He became like this sorcerer, like entity that's like existed in multiple forms of things. He came back south of the wall. Like it's like, and now he's like king or something. It's like, yeah, he does have, like, people were like, all these people have better stories, and they're posting like pictures of like Yara Greyjoy and our people, and I'm like, Yara Greyjoy doesn't have a great story. She was female that was given power because was it the Greyjoys, or not just the Greyjoys, but the Iron Island is probably the closest to democracy with the whole Kingsmoot thing and stuff. And so because of that, she ended up getting to a position of power where she was able to prove herself, and that's it. That's her story.
And also because like there wasn't a credible male heir.
Yeah.
Because at that point, freaking Theon was not a credible person to lead. You know? So.
But that's the thing is like, Yara's a great character.
Yeah.
She's an interesting character and stuff, but like you can't like, if you broke down the events in her story through this series, and then you broke down the events of Bran's story through the series, you're fooling yourself if you say that she had a better story than he did.
Also, that's really what I think is like the end game. Like that's what George R. Martin has planned for the end game.
Oh yeah. This is they knew what George R. Martin's end game was, and they were just kind of taking their own path to it.
If you look at the books, Bran is the first viewpoint character in the series. If you go back to the first book, after the prologue happens, you get your first viewpoint chapter. It's Bran.
Yeah. It makes sense, and it makes sense that he would be a good position for king. I actually kind of thought it was funny that he said, we need a master of whispers. It's like, well, why would you need a master of whispers?
Yeah, why would
I could understand the throne might need a master of whispers when your successor comes along, but why would you need one?
Why would need a master of whispers?
Mister, I know everything. Why do you need a master of whispers?
I did like Bran's small council though. I like that Samwell is Grand Maester. Bronn is Master of Coin, which is great. Tyrion is the Hand of the King again, which is funny because I like that pissed off Grey Worm. I mean, he was like, "Oh no, what the fuck? We gotta kill this guy." And Bran's like, "No, he'll pay for what he did. He'll pay for his mistakes by fixing them."
As Hand of the King, yeah. It's like
King, yeah. Like it's also like a different dichotomy of like what justice is. Like, so for Grey Worm, justice is like, we just kill the bitch. And Bran's version of justice is like, no, people reform themselves by paying penance for what they did.
Yeah.
That's also like a very different viewpoints.
Yeah, Bran's being more evolved, more tuned to like modern thinking.
Right.
people were flipping out about Jon petting Ghost finally.
Oh, yeah.
After his goodbye. Again, this is kind of like, internet meme culture kind of taking over.
Well, it did kind of look a little callous where like Jon ran off to like, to like King's Landing, and he was just like, yeah, okay, keep Ghost, see ya, bye. And it's like,
well, it's funny though, because it's again a case of people going like, oh, they added that in because people were pissed about that. It's like, no, dude, they didn't, they didn't add this shit in a week, that's not what happened.
A reaction to any internet outcry. How could it possibly be a reaction to anything?
Yeah, the problem is that fur is expensive to render.
Yeah.
It's CG. Ghost is CG. Fur is expensive to render. You know what's even harder to render is somebody interacting with fur.
Right.
Like him putting his hand in Ghost fur and stuff. That's really hard to render. So you want to see him pat Ghost. Well, that would have been too expensive and time consuming. But they were able to get it in for the one finale.
For the finale.
But they had to choose where they were going to put it. And they chose the finale.
where you know what? It's better in the finale.
Yeah. It's all pragmatism.
Yeah, it's all pragmatism. Yeah, and we should say like Jon goes beyond the wall because that was a compromise they had to make because
he's not going to be free beyond the wall. He's ranging. He's still wearing
he's still
wearing crow black,
He took the black, which was originally going to be Eddard Stark's punishment before Joffrey decided to kill him against like literally everybody's wishes because Joffrey is fucking Joffrey. So there was a rigid. So again, it's like that's the compromise they make because Grey Worm wanted to execute Jon, and Sansa was going to go to war if that happened. Sansa was going to like kill a bitch, and so and so in order to prevent a war between the Unsullied and the North, they came up with this compromise that Jon Snow would take the black and go and be a member of the Night's Watch again.
You brought up something else that I think some people might have either glossed over or not noticed, which is when Sansa and that whole council arrived in that scene where they ended up picking the king, they had a moment where Grey Worm was like, our people hold the city, we have this many troops, and Sansa's like, well, we have this many troops standing outside the wall. And I think people didn't pay enough attention to that because people were complaining that, Varys wrote all those letters and stuff and nothing ever happened with any of those letters. I think that's exactly what happened with those letters.
Yeah, I think that's,
I think those letters went, and then the troops from Dorne, from Winterfell, all of those converged down at King's Landing.
It's one of those annoying things where like
that's why they brought troops.
Where people complain because they think like every literal thing needs to be seen on screen instead of just suggested. Like people keep harping on this. Like, how did Daenerys get there so fast? Like even like from the scene where Jon kills Daenerys, we jump right to the council and the trial where Tyrion gives his great speech and Bran becomes king, and people are like, well, how does that happen? So, and it's like, that's a time jump. They skip ahead like several weeks. You know?
And they showed that with things like, Tyrion's beard growth and Jon's beard growth and things like that. And by flat out saying that it's been a couple weeks.
It's been a couple weeks, yeah. But then I hear people bitching like, oh, but they didn't show what happened. Like, how did Jon, like, not get immediately murdered by the Unsullied? Why didn't they show everything that happened in those 3 weeks? This is so rough.
Or they expect like a Avengers style 5 years later card to display the actual time change.
Yeah, it's
like, and that's not Game of Thrones style. Game of Thrones has never done that.
It's
like they've never like gone to a new location and had a title card say Winterfell, like it's never done that.
We don't literally need to see everything happen. Like things can be suggested. Like you can infer what happened after Jon kills Daenerys. What happens is Jon turns himself in, the Unsullied takes him captured. They're going to execute him, but then like Sansa gets involved and she gets the other houses involved and they negotiate for Jon's release, and that leads to the council scene where they're negotiating for the release of Jon and Tyrion, and then that's when they decide they also need to appoint a new ruler because there is nobody.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all this, yeah, it's stuff that it's inferred, and you need to kind of pay attention and fill in the blanks in your head, because it's all there. It's just, you just need to, it's not put into direct context for you. You just need to do that yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's good. I don't want things to be overly spelled out. You know what happens when things are overly spelled out? We get metachlorians.
Yeah, exactly. You get, instead of the Force being mysterious, and like a phenomenon that you don't understand, you get midichlorians. And I like it that George R. R. Martin says, like, there's a Lord of Light, or at least there's this entity people believe in called the Lord of Light. And it seems to be real because you see the Red Woman, she seems to have power derived from this Lord of Light. We get characters like Beric Dondarrion who are revived. So there seems to be some truth to that, but we don't know the Lord of Light. We don't know what he's doing. It's all mysterious. And imagine if they just went into this long labored explanation of who the Lord of Light is, where he came from, what his motives are, like his powers and all this shit. Wouldn't that be horrible?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would just be terrible. We don't need to know all that shit. So
enough of this. Let's talk about the exciting sequel series that's coming, Arya the Exploria.
So she's like, what's the west of Westeros? Nobody knows. So she's gonna go there.
Yeah, she's gonna end up in Essos again.
She's gonna end up in Essos.
Because the world is round, so she's gonna go sailing all the way around. Ooh, a spoiler for flat earthers. The world is round.
Yeah, spoiler. She's gonna end up in whatever the hell that world's version of America is. But
yeah, I mean, if you follow the kind of the historical tie-ins, War of the Roses, all that kind of stuff, Westeros being a stand-in for England, Essos being a stand-in for Europe and Africa, and like all that, like as a massive continent that has all that stuff, then obviously what's west? What's westward bound? What did all of these countries try to sail west for? America.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So she's going there, and then obviously Sansa gets crowned Queen of the North. We see that big scene where they're crowning her and they're like, all hail the Queen of the North. So Sansa gets to be queen of her own independent nation.
This is just
thanks to.
It was a very fan service moment. I still don't like Sansa as a character.
Sansa gets to be queen of her own kingdom thanks to the power of nepotism.
Yeah. Yeah, she gets to be queen in the North and still has never done anything clever on the show, but despite fans saying she has. Yeah, she's not my favorite character, so I just kind of was groaning through any scenes with her, but I've done that with every scene with her since the fucking premiere, I think.
I love seeing Tormund in the end, even though he didn't have any lines of dialogue. It was just good seeing his face and knowing that the
real hero of Westeros.
Yeah, knowing.
Now see, when everybody posted those memes of people having a better story than Bran, why didn't anybody post a picture of Tormund?
No,
he had the best story.
He had the best story.
And it was about giant's milk.
That's so. Also, I like the part where Samwell presents Tyrion with a song of ice and fire.
Yeah.
and then I saw the comment online. It's like, damn, Samwell finished a song of ice and fire before George R. R. Martin.
Well, the maester of the main maester guy did, but
big maester guy wrote it, yeah. But still, it was funny. That was a funny moment. So yeah.
Sam's thing kind of makes it's a little bit nonsensical, his position, just because he shouldn't be on the king's council as the main maester to the king when hasn't even trained as a maester really yet.
Well, he trained at the
for like a week.
Yeah.
And he's accomplished and he's great and everything, but there's no part of me that believes that the maesters would be okay with Sam being the main maester for the king, the grand maester,
Yeah, it's funny because every time you see a Maester, they're like old because they've been training for years, and Sam is still very young.
I could see him being a Maester in King's Landing because, Bran specifically requests his counsel,
Yeah.
But he wouldn't be wearing Grand Maester's robes. Like, the Maesters would stop at that. They'd be like, no, sorry, we're not going to give you Grand Maester's robes.
Oh, yeah, and even, how many links has he earned? Like one?
That he earned it's like if you think of links like merit badges, he earned the toilet cleaning merit badge.
Yeah, true.
Grayscale removing merit badge. He's got a chain link made of fucking Jorah's skin.
So overall, what's your opinions on the season overall?
On the season, I had some issues. I think it did feel rushed.
I agree that it felt rushed. I don't know why they said like they only needed 13 episodes to do this when clearly they needed more. Yeah, clearly they had more story than they had time. I don't understand.
Yeah. It's hard to balance that. Like, one thing I think a lot of people aren't giving enough credit for and they're not thinking about is it's really hard because you have to think about like, okay, there's an immediacy. So you have to write as if there's an immediacy. Right. But you have people that are aging. You know what I mean? Like, so you can't go like, oh, we're going to compress like 10 seasons into, the time of 2 weeks. Like it wouldn't work. So there's limits to the medium. There's issues like that. And I'm not saying this is like, that it makes it impossible to have made a better ending. I'm just saying you need to consider these things and criticize it.
I saw a video of George R. R. Martin where they were asking one of the big divergences from the book is that season 2 features Robb Stark a lot more than in the book. Like the book kind of focuses elsewhere, and you don't see Robb Stark for like a long time in the book. And then and George R. R. Martin was explaining, he's like, well, the reason they did that is because, Richard Madden is an actor and he's signed on to do the show. And if they do an entire season without him, then he might go off and do something else. And there's no guarantee they could get him back when it actually came time to get back to Robb Stark and his storyline. And
exactly. There's aspects of the medium that are different.
It was like, what are they going to do? Just like pay him for no work that whole time just to keep him on?
Or recast him and get people frustrated with that, which they've done some recasting on the show.
They have done some recasting.
Recasted the Mountain twice.
But recasting like somebody as major to the story as Robb Stark would have appeared. Yeah, so.
Exactly. There's issues that go into adapting something for screen that are different than go into writing a book, Like there's things that have to be adjusted for like the passage of time. They already adjusted it basically having Arya become older and stuff, whereas in the books she's still really young.
Yeah, in the book
But they can't do that. Because Maisie Williams has aged, she's growing up over the course of being on the show. So it's like they can't just keep pretending she's like 11 years old or something. That's just not going to work.
Yeah, that's just not going to work out. Exactly.
So there's things like that they have to adjust and they have to tinker with. And sometimes it's just a matter of how do you keep the show entertaining? Like, okay, well, we have to fill in all these little details, but if these details have to happen before this big battle happens, then what are we going to do to make it interesting in the meantime between this and that big battle? You could have like really great writing and great moments between characters, but if you have like no action going on for like a full fucking season, people are going to be pissed, So you have to plot things out in that way to consider like, okay, in this episode, there's a lot of talking. We need something to happen or people are just going to get bored of all the lip smacking, like we need something to happen. So what's going to happen here? What development are we going to have happen here besides just, an information dump or just characters talking to each other about stuff that's not even going to become relevant for another 5 episodes?
I think what happened with this season is all the storylines, since we were since we were at the end game, all the storylines were pared down to where it was really just all the characters were really like in one place the entire time. The characters that we needed to focus on. When in previous seasons, we had multiple characters we were focusing on all in different places at the same time, and so we were jumping place to place to place. And this season didn't have that because the characters we needed to focus on were always in the same place.
Yes, and that makes it trickier too. That to tell the same kind of story that they were telling before, right, in a way that's very unlike the kind of story they told before. Where this entire season has taken place in basically two settings.
Yes,
Winterfell and King's Landing. That's it.
Yeah,
you think that's the entire season, and only Winterfell and King's Landing. But it wouldn't make sense to have it take place anywhere else. Nothing else. It wouldn't fit. So I think that's an issue. There is, besides the time crunch, besides rushing things a little bit too quickly, there is one other kind of issue I've had with it, and it comes from one of their greatest benefits. One of the best directors on Game of Thrones is Miguel Sapochnik. He's the guy that does all the battle episodes, and he did 2 episodes this season.
Now, say what you will about episode 5, and the problems it had, sure, but at least it was visually arresting.
See, that's the thing, is Miguel Sapochnik's episode, and this goes back to way before the season. He first did an episode, I think, in something like season 5 or something. That was the first time he directed on the show. And you go to pretty much any episode he's done, and they're visually arresting, they're really cool to watch, there's all sorts of stuff that happens. But then you have the issues that people were having this season of the strategy, Jon's strategies and the strategies people had were really stupid. Why did they send the Dothraki out? Why did they do this? That's been in every Miguel Sapochnik episode, and that's because they prioritize a visual cue or a visual aspect to the storytelling as being more important than logic in certain points. And we talked about it before, but why did they have the Dothraki charge out against the army of the dead? Because they wanted the Dothraki to have flaming swords, and they wanted you to be all rah, they're gonna kick their asses, watch them go out in this moment of glory, have all the characters be super psyched, and then have all of that cheer and excitement just die as all the lights flickered out. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to create that emotion, that feeling. And in order to do that, they had to have, the only way they could really make that work to get that feeling across was to make a sacrifice in logic.
I didn't get to bitch about this before, but what difference did that, people say that was a lapse in logic. Yeah, what difference did it make in the end? People were like, because, and I thought the same thing, people were like, oh, her forces are decimated. She's not gonna have any Dothraki. She goes to King's Landing in episode 5 and she has 1,000 Dothraki still, and
then people complained about that too, that she still had Dothraki.
Yeah, she still had Dothraki. It didn't seem to matter in the end, really, because she her forces were supposed to be severely weakened, and she still decimated Cersei with
just herself, her and her dragon.
Her dragon, yeah, without much of a fight, without much pushback. So it's it didn't matter that the walkers, the White Walkers, destroyed her forces. It didn't really seem to make a difference.
And see, that's the thing, is people complain because they're why all of a sudden are there all these Dothraki? Weren't they all wiped out?
Yeah.
And again, that was something that was sacrificed for a visual cue. We saw what looked like the Dothraki getting destroyed. A bunch of them actually did come back. They just didn't really show us all of them coming back, because if you show most of the forces returning from that, it's not as dour as watching it look like they got decimated.
Right, exactly.
And they didn't show it in such a way. I mean, the scene was dark. We were only kind of seeing one angle of the battlefield, so we didn't see how many people actually did return from that moment. But
most people did, because Ghost went in there and he came back.
Yeah, we didn't see him come back, but we saw that he was back.
Yeah, we saw that he was.
Jorah's the main one we saw that for sure we saw him come back.
Yes.
But that's the thing, is if they had gone out of their way in that episode to show only half of her forces were wiped out, that moment wouldn't be as drastic as it was.
Right.
It wouldn't be as dour. It wouldn't be as impactful as it was. So they couldn't show that. Because if they do, then that whole battle feels less dangerous. So that's kind of the tricky spot they were in, is they had to make the battle for Winterfell look like doom, like impending doom raining down on them. And so they had to make everything look worse than it actually was, because otherwise then that whole threat that had been built up was nothing. You know, like they have to like service both sides of that. So that's where the trick, the problems came in from that. And part of that, like I said, they had to make sacrifices. They had to make sacrifices to logic. They had to make sacrifices to, you know, some aspects of the storytelling in order to achieve other aspects of the storytelling.
Right. Also,
I think that some of those bothered me. Some of them I was okay with. Some of them bothered me.
I felt like these should have been two separate seasons. It did feel like they were two seasons, like 2 3-episode seasons mashed together, because it was as if like episode 4, 5, and 6 have like literally nothing to do with 1, 2, and 3 outside of like a couple things like Daenerys learning about Jon's heritage, Jon learning about his heritage, and that's about it. So yeah. That's the connecting thread. And I thought, yeah,
it should have been more episodes, but you run into, like we talked about, you run into the problem of pacing that out, because in the last season they breached the wall.
Yeah,
so you can't like have a full season of them getting ready for that battle.
No,
because they're too close.
Right,
it wouldn't make sense.
Like the battle happening in episode 3 is absolutely right. But then episode 4 comes and they're basically like, that happened, onto a completely new plot. And it's like, okay.
Well, see, the thing is, like, in television, if you try to portray a long period of time as a short period of time,
right,
you only have 2 ways to do that. One is that you make it so absolutely ridiculous that it's fun to watch moment by moment, but then if you put it together, it's stupid. Like right. 24, for example.
Yeah, 20.
Where his daughter gets kidnapped like 6 times in the course of one day.
Yeah.
You know, it's fucking preposterous. And it's so stupid. And like, people always talk, like, I remember people talking about how like, oh, it's a great show to binge watch because it's real time, so you can watch it real time with it, you know? My sister and I binge watched, I think it was season 2 of 24. Oh, the entire season straight through. She was doing some writing thing where she was writing for an article where she was going to compare like basically the mundane aspects of watching the show with like the exciting things that he was doing. And so she wanted somebody to watch it with her. So I watched it with her. It's fucking ridiculous. Like it really hurt my enjoyment of the show, because when you're watching it week to week, it feels spread out. But when you watch it in the knowing that it's an hour at a time passing, it's stupid. And so you either run into that problem when you try to like compress time like that, or it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
It's one or the other. So in a book, that's not necessarily the case, because in a book you can compress time in a very different way, because you don't just have to have action, you can have thoughts. So you can express a thought over like a chapter that, you know, passes in an instant. But in the book is an entire chapter. You can't really do that in a TV show.
Right.
So like,
it's harder, yeah.
So you have a time compression issue, and that's part of the issue why I think they did have to limit the number of episodes, is because they would have a time compression issue. Like, it would either get boring or it would get too ridiculous. They had to come up to that wall, and so they ended up deciding that the best compromise was to just rush it and go through, which, you know, kind of sucks. Like, I don't like, so I kind of disagree about the it needs another season kind of thing. As much as like, I like, part of me wants that, part of me is like, yeah, but if they had done a whole other season and they had, let's say, ended the first of those 2 seasons with like the war with the White Walkers, are we supposed to believe that it took the White Walkers, like, say it's a full season, 10 episodes to reach Winterfell from the wall? It's like, yeah, that becomes a problem, you know? So that's something I think that we need to give a little bit of credit to them for, like, the position they were in. That's hard. That's a hard problem to fix. But I think I'm trying to think of anything else I really wanted to cover. Oh, did you hear about the alternate ending thing where it was going to happen? Something happened in episode 3 that wasn't originally going to happen, and it had like basically ripple effects through the entire season. Like, it didn't really change the main plot thing, but basically Jorah wasn't going to die in episode 3.
Oh, okay.
And he was going to end up north of the wall with Jon at the end of the season.
I'm kind of glad Jorah died so he didn't have to watch Daenerys like go insane.
That's what Ian Glenn, the actor who played Jorah, ended up saying. That was like his thoughts on it.
Yeah.
But I think part of it was just the impact of like, they needed to kill off somebody somebody else big in episode 3 because it was already kind of ridiculous at how few people actually died in that. And they needed to make like a big sacrifice, and Jorah was one that they ended up saying like, you know what? All the kind of main story beats that we were going to hit with Jorah through the season by keeping him alive, we can kind of hit with Jon. So the kind of struggles between loyalty and love and stuff that Jon was suffering through was also going to be like, that was going to be split between Jon and Jorah.
Right.
Like they were going to hit both of that, and some of the stuff that Tyrion was going through as well. So like Jorah was going to take on some of that stuff. And so they basically realized, we got Jon and we got Tyrion. We can kind of make this work. And so we can get rid of Jorah earlier and have like an impactful moment, because of it.
Let's just start in a series full of major characters dying and not knowing like who's next. Let's talk about Tyrion's amazing ability to constantly get himself into mortal danger, like certain death, and then just miraculously escape it through circumstance. It's like, I'm sure it's not just circumstance because Tyrion had some influence, but it's like Tyrion gets himself to a point where Daenerys is going to execute him, and then Jon kills Daenerys, and that saves Tyrion. And it doesn't save Tyrion because the Unsullied still want to execute him, but then he makes Bran king, and Bran, like, pardons him and makes him the Hand. And actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, I think Tyrion did manufacture all this just to get himself to not be killed.
It could be when you do that, but, like, I don't know. Like, I think Tyrion has always talked about having good luck, and if you really think about the series as a whole, there is some like element of fate and like a hand of gods kind of figure kind of thing throughout the lore of the series and kind of stuff. And it would make sense if you have a character basically born to be hated by being born a dwarf in this family and the struggles he had to endure, that a god might, grant him some semblance of luck, basically as a compensation, like it kind of makes sense in my headspace logic that would be the case. And it's also, he's an incredibly charming character.
Yes.
And charm can be disarming, charm can be the difference between kill on the spot and, I guess I'll kill you later.
I was thinking about it because there's that contrast where, in that scene where Samwell gets up, and because Samwell is not charming and he's not a great speaker, he gets up and he suggests full democracy and everybody laughs at him. But then when Tyrion makes a plea, of a more realistic plea, but Tyrion makes a plea for changing the system, creating this new system of government, he speaks so well and he's so charming that it actually works, that people actually listen to him.
Charisma wins the day.
Charisma wins the day, yeah.
And you can't deny charisma. Charisma is important. Like, I think people will deny the impact of charisma because they're like little, it doesn't go along with the life they've had, like, living in their mother's basement while they've been on the spectrum and not really had that experience. But like, I know people that are super charismatic. I've met people that are in that like super charismatic territory. They can get away with a lot of shit that other people can't.
Right.
Like that's true. If you look at like politicians, certain politicians, like look at Barack Obama as a perfect example. Okay. Now this isn't about politics. This isn't about if you like Barack Obama or not. This isn't anything about that. He was fucking unknown.
This is the SJW podcast.
He was unknown.
Yeah.
And then he became president. And how long did that take? What, 2-3 years from unknown, like basically virtually completely unknown to president of the United States?
Oh yeah.
That's charisma.
Yeah, he had crazy amounts of charisma, like people loved him and for good reason,
Yeah. So it's like, I don't want to get into the politics of it or anything because that's not what this is about, but it's just whether you love him or you hate him or whatever the case, charisma played a huge part in how quickly he rose. And that's something that like, Joe Biden wouldn't have been able to do because he doesn't have that kind of charisma. Hillary Clinton definitely wasn't able to do it. She doesn't have that kind of charisma.
No, she doesn't have that kind of charisma.
It's like so many different Republican candidates weren't able to do it. Like Mitt Romney wasn't able to do it because he doesn't have that kind of charisma.
Exactly.
It's like Obama did. Like that's the thing. It's like, even if you don't like him and you don't like his position, this isn't about, if you was the right person for the job or anything. It's just purely on the fact that he was able to express his point and get people to actually give him the chance to do that because he's charismatic. And I think Tyrion being charismatic has basically saved his life countless times.
I think so. I think you're right about that. Yeah.
Because people are disarmed. They don't take him seriously because he's a dwarf.
Right.
And then he charms them, and then they don't want to kill him because he's kind of funny, you know, like, I don't want to. And so even if they decided that they're going to kill him, maybe they put it off. Like, we'll kill him next week. You know, I don't really feel like doing that right now.
Right.
And that's all it needs. That's all he needs to survive in that moment. You know, things change. His circumstances change.
Yeah, his circumstances change and he gets himself out of the fire.
Yes. So I think you have a combination of charisma, wit, and luck. It's those three things that have basically saved Tyrion through the course of the show.
So my final, overall, flawed season. I enjoyed it, despite the flaws.
Same. I feel exactly the same. I enjoyed a lot of the season. There's aspects about it that frustrated me.
It's not my favorite season, not by a long stretch, but...
No, that'll probably be season 4 for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, not my favorite season either, but yeah, there's a lot of moments that are absolute classics. Like that I will say people that disagree that certain moments are classic or amazing, I will fight them. Arya doing that like hand trick to kill the Night King.
That was awesome.
That was fucking awesome. You know, like seriously.
That was Arya fulfilling her destiny. It's funny because I saw an article in Wired complaining about episode 5, you know, and mostly it was complaining about Daenerys. And I agreed mostly with the Daenerys stuff, because I did think her character arc was rushed. You know, I do see the point of people who think, you know, who feel cheated by Daenerys' sudden heel turn. I do get their point. But then it goes on to say that Arya was denied her destiny because she didn't kill Cersei. And basically, it tried to frame it like she suddenly became subservient to the Hound. The Hound, denied her destiny or some shit.
You know what people that say that need to remember? Yeah. Half the people on her list she didn't kill.
Right, yeah.
And she didn't care that she didn't kill them. Like, she just wanted them to be dead. With Hound's, his comment to her was that it doesn't matter, that she's gonna die.
I don't see how it fulfills Arya's destiny to go kill Cersei and who was already going to die, and then die herself.
The real reason that she was going to kill her herself and not just let her be killed, because I don't think she had any urgency to kill her. And the reason why she took that urgency, I have to do this, was to try to prevent the war.
Yeah.
By the time she had that conversation with the Hound, the war had already ended and Daenerys had already gone berserk.
Yeah, there was no point.
There was no point. There was no benefit.
There was no benefit. You know, she was just going to die trying to do something that was pointless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Arya didn't really give that much of a shit. Besides just I would have liked to have done it myself. She didn't really give a shit that Joffrey died not by her hands, you know?
My counter to that is that Arya fulfilled her destiny. Arya fulfilled her ultimate form when she killed the Night King. When you kill the Night King, killing Cersei is like a step down. Yeah. You know, come on.
You stop the army of the dead single-handedly. It's and then if you want to go on the revenge angle of fulfilling her revenge, Walder Frey.
Walder Frey, exactly. Well, she killed Walder Frey, which is much more satisfying considering what Walder Frey did. So, Arya wasn't cheated in her storyline at all. She fulfilled her storyline, and now she's going to go exploring the world. You know, I think Arya had one of the best arcs in the season. You know, I don't think she was cheated out of anything.
You know what they could have done that would have maybe satisfied fans?
What?
Is they could have had the Hound trickily knock her out.
Yes.
Because that would kind of be a callback to what he did at the Red Wedding.
Right.
When Arya was panicking to get forward, except in this time he'd have to trick her because she's more capable.
Right.
And if he knocked her out and then kind of stashed her away in a corner where she'd be safe, you know? And then continued on or something, maybe that could have satisfied fans more because she would have woken up and it would have already been over. You know? Maybe that would have satisfied people more. But I just don't think, to me it's not that big of a concern. Half the people on her list she didn't kill. And if you want to talk about like a real vendetta, like people are adding Sansa's vendetta to Arya's. Arya wanted to kill Cersei, but it wasn't that kind of like adversarial relationship of absolute disdain like it was between Sansa and Cersei.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like people are like, they're mixing that. Like Arya's personal reasons to kill Cersei are more related to the shit that Sansa went through herself and stuff. And that's less of a personal thing. It doesn't have that same impact. She doesn't care that she has to be the one to kill it. She only cares that she dies, you know?
Right.
And the urgency that made her go off to do it herself was that she was trying to stop a war before it started. But it's too late by that point, and so that's no longer a factor.
It's too late, and the Hound reminds her that it's too late, you know?
Yeah, it's not a factor anymore.
The Hound basically tells her that the Hound basically tells her that he's going to die. He's going out to die. And if she goes after Cersei, that's what she's doing. Cersei's already doomed, so you're just rushing in there to die if you follow me.
And the real implication he's making is that like his target, the Mountain, and her target, Cersei, are going to die anyways.
Right.
Like, and he's still going after his brother, even though it's stupid, because it's all he cares about. It's all he has.
Yeah,
and he's saying that basically, like, you still have other things that you can live for. His vendetta, or Arya's vendetta against Cersei, wasn't the entirety of her list. You know, that was only one name on her list.
Yeah, killing his brother was the thing that was driving.
He only had one name on his list.
Yeah, that was the thing. That was the only thing driving him. You know, essentially since we meet him. Yes. You know, like.
Well, before we met him, you know, that's when
before we met him, he's had this vendetta. You know, and so the only thing keeping him going is fulfilling this vendetta. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about dying. You know, he hasn't cared about dying for a long time, just as long as he kills his brother first.
Yes. I kind of want to wrap this up then. We'll wrap up our discussion. One last point I want to make though, and this is for anybody that feels jilted about what Game of Thrones did this season and stuff, and the people that say it was ruined and stuff. When you watched season 1 of Game of Thrones, did you watch it only because of where it was eventually going to go? Did you get no enjoyment out of it at all at any point? And it was only the wait to get the enjoyment at the end? If it did, then I'm sorry. You know, I'm sorry that that's your experience, but I enjoyed every season in its own right. I enjoyed moments throughout every season in their own right. And even if we accept the idea, the conceit that the entire final season is just garbage, even if we accept that, which I don't, you still had fucking 7 amazing seasons. Even if you say maybe season 7 sucked too, you still had 6 amazing seasons. Like I think that's a perspective that some people need to kind of take, you know?
You at the very least have 4 amazing seasons.
Yeah, you can go back. If you kept watching and you hated it this whole time, you only have yourself to blame at that point. Like, what were you expecting? You're just like, it was suddenly going to all become worth it in just the end?
Again, and this is true for, I think, all media, is it's about the journey and not the destination.
Yeah, I mean, the destination certainly helps, but
it's
if
nice.
you didn't enjoy the journey, then why did you keep sticking on it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Why did you keep watching it? I don't know. If
you're
not enjoying the journey, then why are you watching it?
So just think back on that. If you hate this final season, then just rewatch the series, accept the season, and then just imagine the rest of the season yourself, you know? You still have 7 amazing seasons that you like. It's like,
I don't know. Yeah, write your own ending. I don't know. Like, it's, to me, it's not like, even if I hated this season, like, completely, like, it would not retroactively ruin previous seasons. It would, at most it would be like, well, it's a shame that these storylines end up like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dexter ended like trash.
Yeah.
I still love the first 4 seasons.
Right. You can still watch those seasons and not watch the rest of it. My
life is better. It's more enriched and more enjoyable for having watched those first 4 seasons of Dexter.
Right.
And I hope that the people that hated Game of Thrones can say the same thing. That, you know, they may have hated the final season, but their lives were enriched and made better and made more enjoyable for the seasons that they did enjoy before that.
And you know what? If you haven't read the books yet, I implore you to go and read the books.
It's a completely different way. And if you don't like reading, listen to the audiobooks. Those are good too.
Yes, exactly.
There's other ways to do it. I think they're actually been slowly making a comic book series too that's like an adaptation of it. So there's other ways to enjoy this story.
There's also prequel novel. There's a Duncan Egg, which is
a novella series.
Prequel novella series.
And if you blame this on Dan and Dave, the showrunners of the series, know that they're not involved at all in the prequels, like in any way. They're completely unattached.
The upcoming prequel series, how many of them actually get made? There's 5 in development, but none of them yet have Dan and Dave attached or people involved in this version of Game of Thrones attached. So you can go into that with fresh eyes and hopefully not have this bias on your shoulder because, different people are involved.
Yeah. So that's basically what I'm saying, Find some enjoyment in life. Don't always just hate on everything. I know that we get wrapped up in this culture of hate, of just like bickering and hating on everything and stuff. But if you got this far in the show, then there had to have been something you enjoyed in it. And hold on to that. There's other things you can look forward to because this isn't like the last television series ever being made. It's not even the last great fantasy series. There's a ton in development right now. But yeah, just, find the things that you like and enjoy and kind of just basically get over it. That's what I'm trying to say. Life moves on, like it's a disappointment can be a disappointment. And if you're never going to come around to liking it, then it's time to move on.
These things disappointments often happen. It's fine. You learn to move on.
Yeah. So just, find your next thing, You want to find another fantasy series besides TV series. Let's say you want to find another book. I have a ton of recommendations. The Lies of Locke Lamora is a great one.
Yeah, there's a lot of books. There's a lot of TV series being adapted from those books. So, there's definitely not going to be a shortage of fantasy.
Just do yourself a favor. Do a Google search. Upcoming Amazon originals.
Yes.
And I think you'll be kind of blown away. And that's just Amazon. You'll find there's 5 or 6 fantasy series.
Even on HBO, there's going to be His Dark Materials.
Yeah.
Which is another epic fantasy series,
Yeah, there's lots to enjoy, and that's kind of, I just kind of want to end on maybe a hopeful note like that.
I agree. It should be hopeful. I like that Game of Thrones itself ended on a hopeful note. It didn't end on a cynical note, on a dour note. It ended on a hopeful note, which I think I like that.
It ended like a Christmas special. They're a little bittersweet.
Yeah.
So, so that's it for our Game of Thrones discussion. No more Game of Thrones discussion. We might talk about the prequel someday in the future, but that's not going to be called Game of Thrones, I don't think. So we'll be talking about something else at that point. Next week, I'm not 100% sure what we're going to talk about next week. We haven't kind of made plans yet. I think what I might want to do is a continuation of what we were just talking about. Maybe we'll do a discussion of some of the stuff that's in development that could be the next Game of Thrones. How about that? We kind of talk about stuff that's coming up. Big shows like Watchmen.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Lord of the Rings, stuff like that. And we'll just kind of do a breakdown. We'll pick out a few and talk about how they could be your next TV obsession. And we'll do something like that. That'll be our next episode. Until then, here's what's coming up on the week ahead. More TV shows are always coming out. Remember, Game of Thrones we have ended, but stuff's constantly coming up. So we're recording this on Saturday, but on Friday, May 24th, 2019, She's Gotta Have It returned to Netflix. High Seas came to Netflix. What If came to Netflix. Again, not to be confused with the Marvel What If series coming to Disney Plus later this year. On Sunday, May 26th, 2019, those of you who did like Game of Thrones can enjoy Game of Thrones The Last Watch on HBO. It's a 2-hour documentary kind of about the making of the final season. So if you hated it, just ignore it. But if you actually did like Game of Thrones like I did, in the final season, you got a little 2-hour thing to kind of, say goodbye to it with. Right. On Monday, May 27th, 2019, The Hot Zone, a new miniseries, comes to National Geographic. It's about the Ebola outbreak, and it stars Davos from Game of Thrones, as well as some other actors. So So Game of Thrones connection again. Also, Netflix is getting a show called Historical Roast. It's going to be like a comedy roast, like, you know, when they roast another comedian or something, except they're roasting historical figures.
Nice.
So that could be kind of entertaining, depending on who they have, which is always the case with a roast, you know?
Right, exactly.
On Tuesday, May 28th, Animal Kingdom returns to TNT and Pure returns to WGN. On Wednesday, May 29th, Archer 1999 comes to FXX. This is it's titled 1999, but that's kind of like a parody of the way sci-fi shows back in like the 70s and stuff like that kind of saw 1999 as this far future point. And so this is like Archer in space with like aliens and, you know, having adventures. So if you like Archer, you know, the detective, or the, not detective, but like spy series that then became like a detective series, that then became like a island adventure series. Well, now it's becoming a like space adventure. So that's coming on Wednesday, May 29th, as well as the In-Between, which is coming to NBC, which is kind of like about a psychic, who I assume has will they, won't they chemistry with a police officer to solve crimes. I'm just assuming that though. Friday, May 31st, 2019. Don't cancel your HBO subscription yet. Deadwood the movie comes to HBO. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I think you're going to be watching that one too, right?
I think so.
Yeah, we might talk about that sometime later on the podcast.
One of the Game of Thrones spin-offs is going to be Jon Snow and Tormund solving crimes beyond the wall.
Yeah, with will they, won't they chemistry.
Exactly.
Are they going to make out? We don't know.
Making those like lovey faces.
So Deadwood the movie isn't the only exciting thing coming out next Friday on May 31st. Good Omens, the miniseries, comes to Amazon Prime. Oh, that one is going to be good. David Tennant's in it. Oh man, it's based on a novel that was co-written by Neil Gaiman and
Terry Pratchett.
That's it. Pratchett. Yeah, that's
a dream team pairing.
That's basically I've been excited about this for, I don't know, like 2 years now since they announced it. So that's coming on May 31st. When They See Us, a new miniseries coming to Netflix as well. Bad Blood, don't really know much about that. They have another series coming called How to Sell Drugs Online Fast, is also coming to Netflix. And then lastly, I think it's the last of the really big DC Universe series when DC Universe was first announced and they announced all the originals that were coming to it. Swamp Thing is dropping on DC Universe. So yeah, if you've held off till now, if you jump in now, you get you get Titans, you get Doom Patrol, and you get Swamp Thing, and you also get the Young Justice is on there as well. So Swamp Thing's kind of like the last one. There was rumors that it was canceled, that it was troubled and stuff, but early reviews have been kind of saying it's pretty great. So we'll have to see when it actually comes out, but you can check that out all on May 31st. So that's it. You can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to the podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for listening. And for the last time, Valor Morghulis.
Valor Morghulis.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best